Hi, it's David Smith again at the Art of David Smith. So this week I've been asked to cover the drawing of a realistic eye. I touched upon it in the shading of the face that I did a couple of weeks back, but I've been asked now particularly to focus on a realistic eye and everything what's involved in drawing that and trying to make it convincing. So what you can see before you here is a rough outline, again a lot darker than I would draw this and a lot darker than I would advise you to draw it at home. But I merely have made these lines darker so that you can see them on the recording. So I've got the generic eye here, tear duct, iris. This area here will be the highlight. We have the eyelid, this line, and then the eyebrow is just kind of blocked in there for the moment. So what I've already done here is start to black out the iris. I'm not going in with the full darkness, but I do want it quite dark to really start giving impact to the drawing. So once you've got the iris into the picture as you see before you, we're then going to start working on the other darker areas. Now you've got the outer to the eyeball, and if I'd paid more attention in biology, I'm sure I'd be able to tell you what all these areas of the eye are properly called. But I'm afraid at the moment you're just going to have to put up with the description of the outer of the eye. So I'm going to put it in quite dark. Again, don't worry about some of these light, you can rub them out, and obviously a lot of them I'm going to be using blended away when I start using the blending tool. So carry on with that iris. Now obviously because of how the eyelid hangs over the eye, there's going to be a darker area up top here. Now this is going to be effectively like the shadowing area. Now for the moment I am going to start blocking in this eye with obviously the eye colour. Stay away from the highlight for the moment. We want to try and keep the paper nice and white in that area. So simply putting in what will be some of the shade from the eyelid, but obviously this really now starts forming the colour of the actual eye itself. Now if you've studied an eye in detail, and you'll have seen them on films and things like that, obviously it's nearly like a series of lines which come from this darker outside in, usually forming a pale area around the middle, and then it starts becoming darker again, usually around the iris. So if I literally shade it in that manner as well, so I'm taking from the iris out, and then I'm going to take from the outside in. That way when you look at, if you were to look at each of the individual strokes, what you're doing by pushing it away, you get this finer end. You start with a thicker and it goes to a finer. So I'm going to push this around. Now usually, as I mentioned in the shading of the face, when you get to the bottom of the eye, you're going to start picking up reflections from underneath. So anything what's bouncing off of surfaces is going to bounce back up, and the lower part of the eye is going to have a paler area as well. So I'm not going to, at this moment, take those lines all the way up. And from the other side, I'm going to pull in again. It looks a little bit scrappy at the moment, but when I start using the blending tool on this, then what's going to happen is it's going to colour obviously the inner part of the eye. Again, duplicating the same stroke as what you've done. So from the outer in, and then from the inner out. So what you're trying to do is then where these two meet, very, very gently, just run your blending tool through those areas, because what you're not wanting to do is have it pure white, but you're not wanting it to be dark either. You're wanting to try and keep that area in the middle, really bringing the eye to life. As you're up the top, kind of blend across. So part of this highlight will have the eyelid sitting over the top of it, so you can now blend that over as well. Drag that over. Now, as I mentioned, because of the reflections at the bottom of the eye, we bring that up, not quite as far, but we're going to leave this paler area down here. So at the sides, drag in a little bit more, alternating from the centre out and from the outer edge back in. So once we've got that basic area into there, I'm then going to be looking at extending the shadow down into the tear duct. Now when you get into the tear duct, obviously there's a little bit more detail in here that you'd be looking to put in. So at this point you can start putting that in. Now as well, when you're in this area, because of obviously the moisture in the corner of the eye, you're going to get more highlights. So we're going to try and leave paler areas, which are going to be here and here. I'm going to apply a little bit of shade underneath there. And we're going to shade out the bottom as well, and leave another area of highlight at this point. Now if I was doing this a lot lighter, obviously these areas would be a great deal softer and you wouldn't be seeing the lines. So I'm just going to knock that a little bit back there. Again with the blending tool, I'm going to bring those down and around. And again from underneath, try and keep those lighter areas and pull that around. Again over the other side of the eye, we start bringing the shade of the eyelid onto what would be the eyeball. And it's all quite loose at the moment because the real details are going to start coming in very soon when we start putting eyelashes into there as well. Now at the moment this highlight's obviously far too large and looks very false at the moment because it's just a giant white highlight, but as we start putting the eyelash detail into there, you're going to see a highlight really come to life. Now again, you don't want a pure white eyeball. Nobody's eyeball's pure white. So we're going to bring the shade from there and then slowly bring it down in the shape of the ball. So your strokes need to be as if you're running over the side of a ball and forming that shape. Same when we come from the underneath, so from the edge of the, right in the corner of the eye, again pick up a little bit, because as the eyelashes all clump together in this area, they're going to cause their own shadows into the eyeball at this point. So we're going to use that to our advantage and give the overall eye some volume as well. So again, from the lead that you've got on the iris, you can dip back into there with your blending tool. Into the edge. Now, I've done that quite scrappily, but you can then just roll your eraser around, take that back out, if need be. So obviously by going in lighter than I have been, you'll be able to take that out a lot easier with the eraser. So I don't want to lose that detail in the corner. Now, in regards to the eyelid, obviously as it folds over, this area is going to be quite dark, this actual line, because this is like the fold into the skin. Draw that down. So I've been receiving some good feedback from the comments with the videos, and obviously this video I'm doing now is a result of one of the people watching the other videos and asking me to cover in more detail the drawing of the eye. Now obviously if you want me to cover anything else in any of the videos, please feel free to leave your comments. Also, to clarify, obviously those people aren't as used to YouTube as others. It doesn't cost you anything to subscribe. Subscribe is one of those strange words what people seem to think is going to cost them money, and it doesn't. It just helps me out. It's like a follow. It just means you're following my channel. That's it. There's no money involved in it. So if you come across the video, please hit subscribe, because when you're starting out, subscribers are everything. They really are important. So as you can see from here now, I've gone back into using the blending tool. Now what tends to happen with the skin around here, kind of echoes the fold of the eye. So draw your lines in the same shape as this darker line, and it will look right. If you go against it, it will start to look incorrect. You might not be able to put your finger on what it is what's making it look incorrect, but that's what it'll be. So again, when you shade in the same orientation. Very, very important that if you shade in the correct orientation, the overall effect will be far, far better. So again, putting these in for the moment, just down to the bottom, put some shade into there. This is obviously where the start of the lower eyelashes would end up being. Again, as you come underneath the eye, follow the shape of the eye. So when you're putting your shading lines in, echo the shape of the eye. Again, I'm going to move over to this side. We follow the shape of that eye to the underneath. I do apologise for my chair. I've had to move into a different room today because the light is absolutely appalling in the room I use for drawing. So forgive if you can hear the squeaking of the chair. So again, we're going to move these lines down, all echoing the shape of this eye. Blending tool, soften these up. Again, if you haven't seen the other video, these blending tools, absolutely cheap as chips. Don't use the finger, you don't have the same level of control. It can end up smudgy, and often you end up with fingerprints all over your work. It does not look professional at all. So I think it's a couple of quid off of the likes of Amazon or into some of the art shops which you'll have on the high street. So they're no cost at all to these things. They really are cheap, and they come in a variety of sizes, so obviously you can use the size what best suits your drawing, what you're doing at the time. So what I'm trying to do is not go too close to this eye, because with the lower eyelid we're going to pick up light from above, and that's going to bounce off of the top of this, what is essentially the bottom eyelid. So there we go. So again, shading wise, I'm going to bring some of the shading now over underneath the eyebrow. Not worrying about that eyebrow at all at the moment, just literally getting in all these areas of shade. So obviously where the eyebrow is, it casts shade down over the eyelid, and then obviously as we come out of there we want to be highlighting more this area. This will pick up quite a lot, and it's obviously one of the areas where when girls are applying makeup and things like that, this is kind of the area where they're highlighting. Kind of catches the light nicely. So again, I'm going to bring this round. Now when we get to this area, it tends to happen from the back of the eyebrow. Kind of scoops around, the light naturally falls in a kind of circular type pattern, the shading. So again, we're just going to pull that down there for the moment and try and give it that realistic feel. And then some of these lines we're going to put in a darker at a later point, but for the moment you start seeing how the eyes really starting to come together now. Put greater emphasis on some of these darks, but it's always easier to add, not so easy to take away. So a little bit darker into there. Now, eyelashes. So obviously eyelashes aren't straight, so everything you want to be putting in here needs to be curved lines. So starting back down here, so from where the eyelash would grow, we're going to just start stroking in. Now some eyelashes are going to cross over, some you'll find there's a couple together, others there's quite a gap in between. But what you're trying to do is get this overall effect as you move around. Now, often you'll see a little bit of the eyelid underneath there as well, because obviously the root bed for the eyelashes all tends to grow from the edge. And as we move around, they tend to get thicker and longer. So with some of them, they'll cross over, some will go over the top of this fold in the eyelid, others they also start to creep a little bit over the eyeball area as well. So again, you can see none of these lines that I'm putting in at the moment are straight. They're all curved. And starting at the base, again, pushing out so it pushes to a thin tip. And you can make these eyelashes as plentiful and as full as you deem necessary for your picture. Now, while I'm in this area, as we were saying before, this highlight at the moment is not feeling very realistic at all. So what you would see is some of the eyelashes hanging over the highlight. These would be the shadow of these as it reflects down from the light source, which we're assuming is from above. So again, with the blending tool, we're going to knock a little bit of this highlight back. But then make these eyelashes very distinctive in that area. So again, I'm going to start bringing some of these levels of shading up and darken some of these areas, giving real presence at the top. And we're not having this as pure white, so we're going to just run the blender over there so it's paler and you can see it, but it doesn't want to be pure white. Same down into this area. As we then hit the bottom, again with the curved action for the eyelash, starting smaller, we can then build them up as we go across. Again, following this edge. All of a sudden this, what is quite scrappy blending under here, becomes less noticeable because your eyes naturally want to fixate on the eyelashes. I guess that's why we find a nice set of eyelashes so appealing. It really frames a person's eye. And we'll bring these down just a little bit further and a little bit longer. Blending tool, just shade that area out a little bit more. I'll bring that eyelid down behind it. Now, contrary to popular belief, eyebrows don't look like slugs. So we don't want to block this in because it starts looking like some scary horror type character. So nice set of eyebrows, often a kind of S shape. So starting from here, and what I'm going to have to do is these guidelines, because I've not put them in lightly, I'm going to have to knock them back a little bit as I go along, otherwise they're going to be too distracting. So in a very loose S shape, so I'm kind of going round and across. So we have this loose S shape at the moment. Then as we hit this point, the eyebrow at the top will start wanting to come in. So again, I'm just going to knock out some of these guidelines what I used, so you're not distracted by them. A little bit lighter, and also I just need to run some of this shade behind the eyelashes, eyebrows even, because otherwise it's going to look very strange, because it's going to be a lot paler underneath there. So again, I come back in, and some of these are going to cross over each other. There's going to be slightly thicker areas, but by putting those thicker areas in and thinner areas, it starts making for a more realistic eyebrow. Come in over the top again, come from the top down. These ones from the bottom come up to join. And obviously everybody's eyebrows are different, but follow photographs. Like I've already mentioned, there's so much reference online now, or even magazines. Photography is so good, such good photographs. So there you go. That's going to have to be the end of it for the moment. I will add to that in 2 ticks. Sorry about the interruption there, postman. So now that we've got the parcel taken in, we can carry on. So we're just literally finishing off these eyebrows. What we've got to be careful at this point is that I'm not putting in too many. Obviously we don't want a giant thick bushy eyebrow, so try and go back over some of these just to add a little bit extra weight rather than keep putting extra brows in there. So slightly thicker areas, it comes down. Obviously by giving some of these greater weight and others, really gives the eyebrow some life. Now what I can then do at this point is just bring up some of these darker areas. Obviously the iris is incredibly dark, so again we're just going to bring that up. Now we can see the overall picture around the edges at the top here, darker as well, and even into these eyelash areas, certainly at the base where all the roots are growing from. Try and make those a little bit darker so it really lifts the overall effect. Some of these eyelashes make slightly thicker. Now at this point, if we're really going to town, we can then start putting in those real tiny little blood vessels, what you sometimes see. This will give it a little bit more realism. Now there are artists out there who just make absolute mincemeat of this when it comes to hyper-realism, but I'm still a great believer in a piece of art looking like a piece of art. If I wanted something that realistic, I'd take a photograph. As we get to the edge of this, it just softens slightly on that very edge. So if you just roll your blending tool around the edge, as it touches the white, it's just going to soften that, slightly blur it, and really make it feel like it's part of the overall eye. I will then go into the actual eye itself, and I've often got these little patches, a little extra colour in there, darker areas in a lot of people's eyes, so I will bring like the odd veins through so they touch. In other areas we've got the patches. But again, we're always trying to use that stroke, what I mentioned before, so in odd areas, even down here where it's pale, we might have the odd one that goes through and touches from side to side. Other areas we stay away from it, because we're going to obviously emphasise this light, what's bouncing up on here as well. So I'm rapidly running out of time here, so I think at that point we will draw the video to a close. A little bit more blending at that. I think you can see just by being systematic with how you start with the drawing and then start applying the colour, how it really comes together and forms the overall finished product. Obviously in your version you're not going to have these dark lines in here, they were merely those guides what I used at the beginning. So if you've liked what you see here, please feel free to subscribe to the channel. Any comments that you might have or any suggestions for further videos, please feel free to leave them in the comments. I do read them all and I will try and answer them all back. So thank you for your time, and hopefully see you again on the next video. Thanks, bye bye.